Eyewitness News Team, I'm Bill Butel. Thank you so much for being with us. Good luck, be well, good night.
August 9th, 1995.
Summertime time, come and go, my.
It was the band that symbolized an era, a mood, a lifestyle. It was a decades-long party that seemed as though it would never end, and he was the host.
It's the trip that's interesting, not the culmination, you know. It's not the arrival. It's not an arrival thing, it's a process.
It's the end of an era. Rock and roll will never be the same.
Tonight, the life and death of Jerry Garcia.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
I don't quite know what I was expecting the first time one of our kids popped a Grateful Dead recording into the tape deck, but I must have looked as though I needed reassurance because it came with a, "You're going to like this, Dad, it's mellow." And it was, pleasantly so. Nevertheless, certainly to the surprise of no one in my family, I will not be one of those middle-aged, buttoned-down types who today astonishingly reveals himself to have been a deadhead all along. As Mark Twain once charitably noted, we're all ignorant just about different things. I'm relatively ignorant about the Grateful Dead, but even if I'd been unaware of their enormous popularity these past 30 years, Jerry Garcia's death today produced one of those extraordinary reactions that demands attention. It was limited neither by generation nor gender, race or class. Famous people die all the time, but today millions of people seem to feel that they have lost a friend, a touchstone to something important in their own lives. Look across the country tonight, as this remarkable medium of television allows you to do. Live, here in Washington, they are paying tribute to Jerry's memory on the Mall. And there they are in New York Central Park, doing the same. And there, too, on the other side of the country, in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. Strangers drawn together by the need to publicly mourn the man whom Jeff Greenfield interviewed some years ago.
From our point of view, we're just doing what we do. We don't know why, you know. We just know, here's what happens. You do it and this happens. We don't know why it happens.
He was an unprepossessing middle-aged musician who died early today at age 53. Weakened by too many cigarettes, too much weight, too many drugs. And he is being mourned tonight the way Elvis and John Lennon were mourned when they died, because he was about much more than the music.
I live in a silver mine.
Garcia and the Grateful Dead have been playing that music for more than 30 years, a sweet mix of rock, folk, bluegrass, and haunting lyrics.
Come here, Uncle John's band by the riverside. Got some things to talk about here beside the rising tide. Come here, Uncle John's band playing to the tide. Come on along or go along. He's come to take his children home.
And because they blossomed in the San Francisco of the 1960s, it is easy to peg them as a piece of living nostalgia, a convenient doorway back to be-ins and psychedelic colors and drugs.
Driving that train, high on cocaine. Casey Jones, you better watch your speed.
But it was much more than that.
They meant a lot to people in a very personal way. Even if you'd never met any members of the Dead or had ever met Jerry, you just sort of felt like you knew him because of the way they carried themselves and the way they performed and the way they really brought you into their experience.
What Jerry Garcia and the Dead did for these last 30 years was to live by what they said they believed. Their concerts were not cookie-cutter 90-minute sets, but ran 3 or 4 hours. They never played a song the same way twice, and each song would last 15 or 20 minutes as they played with and off each other.
We don't do a show. So it's not one of those things that you can put yourself on automatic drive and just do it. It's for us that you have to be there, you have to pay attention.
And the Dead went out of their way to make their fans feel a part of them. For instance, instead of banning the taping of their concerts, the Dead set up a special section for their tape heads so they could get better quality sound. And the fans responded with a loyalty that bordered on devotion, and sometimes crossed that border into something approaching obsession. It's not just that the Grateful Dead are one of the more successful touring groups in history. Last year, they grossed nearly $50 million and played before more than 1.7 million people. And it's not just that their reach is very wide. Consider this fan, Vermont Senator Pat Leahy.
I'll go with my sons, and I'll see young people and people older than I am at it, and from across all walks of life, and everybody sort of takes what they want from the music, but I think most people leave feeling that they were glad they went.
But what really sets this band apart is the Deadhead, the acolyte who leaves home, school, and job to spend months or years following the Dead like some religious pilgrim.
Why the Dead? Well, the music is a form of communication of the highest of the ideals of the 60s, which is peace, joy, bringing people together.
At any Dead concert, like this one back in 1989 at the New Jersey Meadowlands, you could imagine yourself in a kind of time warp, swept up in a tie-dyed brigadoon, mingling with people who weren't even born when the Grateful Dead first became popular.
Well, today's music just absolutely does not have it, man. From anywhere you look, today's music is down the tubes.
It's part of one of the last remaining adventures. You can't ride the rails anymore in America. You know, it's tough to hitchhike even, but you can have an experience out on the road with the Grateful Dead. You can follow the band around for a tour. You can have those kind of adventures.
But not every adventure was benign. This summer brought a string of disasters to the Dead, from fans being hit by lightning at a concert in Washington, to riots in Indiana, to a near-fatal building collapse in St. Louis. And one-time Deadhead Carolyn Ruff says the life was not all peace and love.
It can just get very nasty. I mean, it gets to stealing from each other and arguing about it in the parking lot before a show or inside a show. And it just makes for a very ugly atmosphere, which is a complete contrast to what the band represents. What I saw was a lot of tour heads living a myth of an era that had died a long time ago.
Garcia himself had been battling ill health for a decade. He died at a drug rehab facility he had just checked into. Longtime band publicist and historian Dennis McNally.
He really had to be very careful, and he wasn't that kind of careful guy. So he finally made the commitment, and his body let him down.
The radio and TV retrospectives today were filled with these lines from A Touch of Grey that promised, "I will survive." But in fact, the music of the Grateful Dead was filled with intimations of mortality. And maybe that's what gave their music and their performances such resonance to so many people. They were a celebration of joy in that brief moment of sunlight before the darkness. And the Grateful Dead didn't just sing it, they lived it.
And when it's happening, it's very exciting for us. It's fun, and it's lots of levels of kind of fun. You know, it's real big fun, and it's also little fun too. There's a lot to it.
And it's just a box of rain or a ribbon for your hair. Such a long, long time to be gone, and a short time to be there.
When we come back, we'll be joined by singer-musician David Crosby, by Senator Pat Leahy, and by the New York Times pop music critic John Pareles.